The most dangerous truth is this: a fed-up empath is more terrifying than any narcissist has ever dared to imagine. Jung discovered that when the one who absorbs, who bends, who carries the unseen wounds of others, finally reaches the breaking point, the eruption is not merely personal, it is archetypal. It is the shadow of humanity itself, rising through one fragile vessel who has endured too long. Narcissists thrive because empaths absorb. Because the empath's compassion becomes the narcissist's camouflage. But what happens when compassion hardens into clarity? What happens when the mirror refuses to reflect lies? That is when the narcissist faces the storm they never prepared for. Let me take you into the quiet study where Jung once sat with a woman named Anna. Her voice was gentle, her body tense, her words hesitant, as if each sentence were a confession dragged from the depths. She spoke of her husband, a man who was charming in public, ruthless in private. He needed constant admiration. He raged when she questioned him. He whispered poison into her heart, that she was weak, unlovable, nothing without him. And she, being an empath, believed him because she felt the wound behind his cruelty. She thought if she loved more, he would heal. But each attempt only bound her deeper into his labyrinth. For years, she endured, carrying his pain as if it were hers, until the day came when something inside her snapped, not loudly, but like ice breaking on a river. She sat across from Jung and said, "I no longer care if he loves me. I see him." That sentence was a revelation. It was not anger. It was not bitterness. It was sight. She had finally turned her gaze inward and found that the reflection he offered was false. And Jung knew at that moment that she was no longer prey. She was becoming the storm. The fed-up empath does not merely leave, they transform. And this transformation terrifies the narcissist because it strips away the illusions that fuel their control. The narcissist feeds on projection, casting their shadow outward, so others will carry it for them. But when the empath refuses the burden, when the empath says, "This is not mine," the narcissist is forced to face their own abyss. Few predators survive when the prey evolves into a mirror that reflects back their monstrous hunger. Jung called it the confrontation with the shadow. The empath who has been pushed to the edge discovers that the darkness they feared outside has been whispering inside all along. Every suppressed anger, every swallowed word, every hidden boundary rises like a tide. But unlike the narcissist, the empath does not unleash this darkness to destroy others. They integrate it. They recognize, yes, I too have rage. I too have limits. And I am not ashamed of them. That acceptance becomes power. Imagine a candle in a dark room. For years, the narcissist hovered around it, shaping the shadows on the wall, convincing the candle that the monsters were real. But when the candle grows into a torch, when its flame burns so bright that shadows collapse, the narcissist's game ends. The illusion is gone. The empath now carries fire, and so I tell you this warning. If you are an empath, know that your fed-up moment is not weakness, it is awakening. The storm you carry will not destroy you. It will reveal you. But you must understand the signs that lead to this breaking point, the stages by which compassion becomes captivity, and the strategies by which you free yourself. Jung left us a map, but few dare to follow it. Because to follow it means you must walk into the shadow basement of your own soul. Before we reach the signs, let us pause in the narrative. Picture Anna again. She wrote in her journal after that session, "I feel like the walls of my life are paper. For years, I believed they were stone, but now I touch them, and they tear beneath my fingers." That is the precise sensation when an empath awakens. The prison was never stone. It was suggestion, manipulation, projection. When she realized this, her fear dissolved. And with it, the chains, Jung explained to her that narcissists live by projection. They cannot carry their own shame, so they hurl it outward, searching for someone soft enough to hold it. The empath, by nature, is that vessel, sensitive, compassionate, attuned. They absorb what others deny. But projection is not truth. It is poison disguised as responsibility. When the empath awakens, they recognize the poison and refuse the cup. That refusal is deadly to the narcissist, because it leaves them alone with the shadow they have spent their life escaping. Consider the metaphor of the storm. At first, the empath is the shelter, the safe roof that absorbs the rain. But storms grow, and when the roof collapses, when the empath rises with thunder instead of silence, the narcissist is left in the open field, exposed to the lightning of their own lies. This is why a fed-up empath terrifies them, because it is not only resistance, it is revelation. It is the moment the illusion shatters. The most terrifying enemy is not the one who fights you with fists, but the one who sees you. The fed-up empath does not scream, "You hurt me." They whisper, "I see you." And in that whisper, centuries of archetypal power awaken the eternal war between truth and illusion, light and shadow, victim and predator. You, reading this, may already feel the tremors of such an awakening. Perhaps you have given until your heart aches. Perhaps you have bent until your spine trembled. Perhaps you have silenced your voice to keep peace, only to find the silence suffocating you. That is not weakness. That is the prelude. You are not collapsing. You are gathering. And soon, your storm will arrive. Sign 1. Exhaustion that no rest can cure. You wake up tired. You go to bed tired. You live in a haze of fatigue that is not yours. This is not mere stress. This is soul drain. The empath begins to feel as though they are carrying invisible weights, dragging chains forged from the emotions of others. It is the exhaustion of someone who has been holding the pain of the world on shoulders, never built for that burden. Jung warned, when fatigue is no longer physical but existential, it is a sign that the unconscious is demanding change. The body whispers what the soul screams. Enough. Sign 2. The silence begins to ache. Empaths often learn to stay quiet. They swallow their words to keep peace, to avoid triggering rage, to preserve harmony in a house of chaos. But the silence begins to rot inside. It festers. What was once patience becomes bitterness. What was once tolerance becomes suffocation. And the empath notices their own voice. When it finally erupts, sounds strange rave, primal, shocking even to themselves. This stage is the birth of the shadow voice, the unconscious truth demanding release. Sign 3. The mirror cracks. For years, the empath has believed the narcissist's reflection. You are weak. You are too sensitive. You are nothing without me. These lies became the walls of their reality. But one day, often without warning, the mirror shows a fracture. Perhaps a word slips from the narcissist's mouth that suddenly sounds ridiculous. Perhaps the empath hears their own thought and recognizes, that is not mine. The illusion begins to collapse, and once the crack appears, no force can unsee it. The house of mirrors shakes. Sign 4. Rage disguised as clarity. This is not the narcissist's rage, chaotic and manipulative. This is focused fire. The empath feels a heat rise in their chest. Not destructive, but illuminating. They see through manipulation instantly. They stop explaining themselves. They stop begging. They look into the narcissist's eyes and feel nothing. Not fear, not need, only recognition. Jung described this as the archetype of the warrior emerging in the psyche. When an empath reaches this stage, their compassion sharpens into a sword. Sign 5. Detachment from illusion. At this stage, The empath no longer plays the role assigned to them. They do not rise to defend themselves. They do not crumble at insults. They do not chase apologies. They begin to feel strangely calm, even as chaos erupts around them. This detachment terrifies the narcissist most because it signals the end of control. The empath is no longer tethered to the narcissist's emotional storms. They watch as if from outside, as though awakening from a long dream. Sign 6, the sacred no. This stage is not loud. It is not violent. It is a quiet refusal that echoes louder than any scream. The empath says no to carrying shame. No to being blamed. No to being manipulated. That no is sacred because it is not fueled by hatred, but by self-recognition. It is the voice of individuation, the soul declaring its right to exist unchained. Jung called this the moment the self begins to eclipse the ego's illusions. For the narcissist, this no is death to their empire. Sign 7, the storm awakens. When all the other signs converge, the empath becomes what the narcissist never expected: a storm of perception. Unmovable, unstoppable, unpredictable. They no longer bend, but they do not shatter. They transform. The storm is not vengeance, though it may look like it. It is truth unleashed. The empath may leave, may expose, may simply disappear into silence. But in every case, the narcissist faces the unbearable. The prey has become the mirror, and the hunter sees themselves clearly for the first time. Each sign is not merely psychological. It is archetypal. It belongs not just to you, but to the human story. Myths have spoken of it for centuries. The quiet one who endures, the innocent who absorbs, the lamb led to slaughter until the moment the lamb reveals itself as lion. This is not melodrama. It is psychological inevitability. Every soul has a threshold, and when the empath's threshold is crossed, the transformation is irreversible. I remember another case Jung described, a young man named Elias who lived under the thumb of a domineering father. The father, charming in public, cruel in private, demanded perfection. Elias, the empath, became his mirror, striving, bending, apologizing, shrinking. But when Elias reached university, surrounded by voices that affirmed his worth, he felt the crack in the mirror. He began to see his father not as a god, but as a broken man projecting his wounds. The rage that followed was not loud, it was liberating. Elias wrote in his diary, "I feel like the air is mine again." That was the storm. Not fists, not revenge. Breath, freedom. The fed-up empath terrifies the narcissist because the narcissist cannot control what they cannot predict. Narcissists rely on patterns: push, pull, guilt, charm, rage, repeat. But when the empath awakens, the pattern breaks. The narcissist screams, and the empath does not flinch. The narcissist withdraws, and the empath does not chase. The narcissist lies, and the empath does not believe. The script disintegrates, and without the script, the narcissist has nothing. If you have felt these signs, know this: you are not breaking down. You are breaking through. You are not losing yourself. You are finding the self beneath layers of illusion. The exhaustion, the silence, the rage, the detachment, the sacred no. These are not signs of weakness. They are signals that your soul is preparing for individuation. The process Jung called the true purpose of life. You are not simply leaving a toxic bond. You are entering your own wholeness. But beware. This awakening carries danger. It is not safe, because truth is never safe. The narcissist may lash out, desperate to restore control. They may weep, plead, rage, promise anything. They will throw every projection they have left at you. But remember this, their storm is borrowed. Yours is eternal. Their power is illusion. Yours is archetypal. The moment you feel that sacred no rising in you, know that you have crossed a threshold that cannot be reversed. The narcissist will sense it too, and they will fear you not because you harm them, but because you see them. And nothing terrifies the liar more than being seen. Step 1. Trust the gut you have long ignored. For years, you silenced it because you were trained to. The narcissist mocked it, calling it paranoia, overreaction, sensitivity. But Jung insisted that intuition is the language of the unconscious, the compass pointing toward hidden truth. When your stomach tightens, when your skin prickles, when your chest feels like it is collapsing, that is not madness. That is wisdom. The gut is the shadow's early warning system. To trust it is to begin reclaiming your map of reality. Do not ask, is this logical? Ask, does this feel alive or does this feel dead? Life points you home. Death points to illusion. Trust that pulse. Step 2. Name the shadow. The narcissist survives because you carry their shame, their rage, their emptiness. They hurl the darkness outward. And you, being empathic, absorb it without protest. But the liberation begins when you say aloud, "This is not mine." Write it in a journal. Whisper it in the mirror. When the shame rises, say, "This shame belongs to them." When the rage floods you, say, "This rage is a projection." Naming is exorcism. Jung called this act the withdrawal of projections. It is terrifying at first, because it leaves you staring into your own authentic wounds. But it also dismantles the narcissist's spell. You no longer hold their ghosts. Step 3. Confront your own rage. Empaths fear anger, because they associate it with destruction. But Jung warned, unacknowledged rage festers into sickness, depression, despair. To confront it does not mean to unleash it on others, but to sit with it, to breathe with it, to say, "I am angry, and my anger is sacred." Imagine your rage as a fire in the hearth. It can burn down the house, if neglected, but if tended, it gives warmth, light, direction. The empath who embraces rage as sacred energy discovers a strength the narcissist never anticipated. You no longer fear conflict, because you carry fire in your chest without apology. Step 4. Anchor boundaries in the body. Boundaries are not thoughts, they are flesh. They live in the spine that straightens when you say no. They live in the legs that walk away. They live in the hands that close the door. Narcissists manipulate through words, bending your logic, twisting your compassion, but they cannot argue with the body that refuses to move. Jung once wrote that the psyche is embodied. Therefore, every true no must be enacted physically. Do not just think, "I deserve respect." Stand, walk, close, delete. The body makes the soul's decision visible. And when the narcissist sees that, their illusion collapses further. Step 5. Create a sanctuary of silence. The narcissist's voice echoes like thunder in your mind long after they have left the room. Their projections live in your head as ghosts, repeating accusations. Jung advised patients to carve out silence, not mere absence of sound, but psychic quiet. This can be meditation, prayer, walking in the forest, or simply sitting by candlelight. In silence, the ghosts grow weak. In silence, you hear your own voice again, and when you hear it, you recognize it as older, wiser, eternal. Silence is not escape. Silence is reclamation. The narcissist cannot survive in silence, because their empire is noise. Step 6. Invoke the archetype of the warrior. Jung taught that within every psyche, live archetypes, universal patterns of human experience. The empath, when trapped, is ruled by the archetype of the martyr. They sacrifice endlessly, convinced that suffering is salvation. But the moment of liberation requires summoning the warrior. This does not mean violence. It means unshakable presence. The warrior does not beg. The warrior does not chase. The warrior stands, breathes, declares, protects. When you invoke the warrior within, the narcissist sees a face they cannot manipulate, because it reflects not weakness but power. The empath who becomes warrior embodies both compassion and boundary. That synthesis is unbreakable. These steps are not linear. They are cyclical. You may trust your gut one day and doubt it the next. You may name projections in the morning and swallow them again by nightfall. But each attempt strengthens you. Each practice rewires the psyche. Individuation, the process Jung saw as life's goal, is not achieved in one lightning bolt, but in countless sparks. The fed-up empath is not born in a single rebellion. They are forged through repeated refusals, repeated insights, repeated acts of self-recognition. Imagine Anna again, the woman with the paper walls. After Jung guided her through these steps, she began to live differently. She stopped answering calls when her husband raged. She journaled every day, writing the words, "not mine," whenever shame rose. She began walking by the river in silence, listening to her own thoughts without interference. And one evening, she stood in the kitchen as her husband shouted, and she felt nothing. Not fear, not guilt, nothing but clarity. She looked at him and said, "I see you." He froze. The storm was hers now. Jung described individuation as a storm, tearing down illusions so the soul could emerge whole. For the empath, this storm is terrifying, because it feels like everything is ending. But in truth, it is beginning. Each step dismantles a lie. Each step restores a fragment of the self. And when the fragments unite, the empath no longer exists as prey. They exist as a force, terrifying not because they destroy, but because they see. If you are on this path, hear this warning. Once you awaken, you cannot go back. Once the mirror cracks, it will never again show the narcissist's illusion. They will beg, rage, promise, threaten, but you will not believe them. Because belief was the prison, and belief is gone. What remains is sight, and sight is freedom. The transformation begins quietly. The empath who once trembled at raised voices now hears them as echoes of emptiness. What once pierced their heart now glances off like arrows striking stone. This shift is not indifference, it is revelation. The empath realizes that love was never meant to be slavery, that compassion was never meant to be weaponized. And in that realization, they awaken into power. Transformation is not the empath turning cold, it is the empath turning whole. Before, they were fragmented. One part, compassionate healer. Another part, silent prisoner. Another part, secret dreamer. Now the fragments fuse. They become a singular force of presence. People around them notice. The eyes sharpen. The spine straightens. The words cut with clarity instead of apology. The narcissist recoils, sensing that the game is finished. The prey has become untouchable. Consider again Anna. Months after her awakening, she sat with Jung once more. She spoke not of fear, but of discovery. She had taken up painting, filling canvases with colors she had long suppressed. She had found laughter returning. Not the nervous laughter of appeasement, but the deep laughter of one who feels free. She no longer reacted to her husband's manipulations. He grew erratic, desperate, like a magician whose audience suddenly stopped believing in magic. Without belief, the trick collapsed, and Anna walked away not in rage, not in vengeance, but in serenity. She wrote in her journal, "I feel like I have been born again. But this time, I am not born for him. I am born for me." This is the terrifying truth for narcissists. When the empath awakens, they do not become the narcissist's opposite. They become something beyond categories. The narcissist thrives on the binary of predator and prey, controller and controlled. But the awakened empath exists outside the game. They no longer supply fuel, no longer dance in the push-pull, no longer bend under projection. They see the entire stage for what it is, a theater of shadows, and once you see the stage, you are free to walk off it. The narcissist is left alone with their own darkness. And that is their greatest fear. They cannot bear the mirror. They cannot survive silence. They cannot stand in the storm of their own shadow without someone else to carry it. The empath's transformation forces them to face themselves. And for many narcissists, that confrontation is unbearable. They lash out, they crumble, or they wander empty, seeking another to feed upon, but they never forget the terror of that moment when the empath's eyes said, "I see you." Now imagine this transformation in you. Imagine the exhaustion dissolving as you realize it was never your burden. Imagine your silence breaking into words that feel like thunder. Words you do not fear, but savor. Imagine the mirror cracking, and in the shards, you see not weakness, but a face glowing with hidden fire. Imagine standing in the sacred, no, not trembling, but steady, grounded, certain, and imagine the storm, not a storm that destroys you, but a storm that sweeps away illusions, leaving you standing in clear air, breathing freely for the first time in years. That is your future if you dare to walk the path. But here is the warning. Transformation demands sacrifice. You must give up the role you once played. You must give up the fantasy that your compassion will save the narcissist. You must give up the comfort of illusion, the hope that if you just love harder, things will change. They will not. The only change is within you. The only salvation is your own individuation. Jung wrote that no one can individuate for another. Each soul must walk through its own shadow. If you try to walk for them, you will drown. But if you walk for yourself, you will rise. The outcome is paradoxical. You become softer and stronger at once. Softer because you no longer waste energy defending against lies. Stronger because you no longer fear truth. Softer because you reclaim compassion for yourself. Stronger because you no longer confuse compassion with slavery. You become terrifying not because you harm others, but because you refuse to be harmed. You are the quiet storm, the unshakable mirror, the witness who cannot be deceived. So I ask you now, where are you in this process? Do you feel the exhaustion that no sleep heals? Do you hear the silence rotting inside you? Do you sense the crack in the mirror, the rage that is really clarity, the sacred no trembling at the edge of your lips? If so, you are closer than you think. You are not collapsing. You are awakening. You are not ending. You are beginning. You are not weak. You are terrifying. Write this truth into your bones. The fed-up empath is the archetype of transformation. They are the ones who show the world that love without boundaries is slavery. But love with boundaries is divine fire. They are the storm that tears down illusions so new life can grow. And once awakened, they walk among us not as victims, but as visionaries. Now I leave you with this challenge. Do not let this remain theory. Let it become flesh in you. Look at your life and ask, where have I absorbed what is not mine? Where have I believed lies? Where have I silenced my own voice? And then declare, even if only in a whisper, I see everything. Write it in the comments. Declare it as your first act of storm. Say it, and let the words reverberate through the archetypes, through the shadows, through the illusions. Let the world know that you are no longer prey. You are awake. If this message struck you, subscribe, because the storm does not end here. There are deeper shadows to face, greater truths to uncover, more awakenings to ignite. Each message builds upon the last, guiding you step by step into the hidden corridors of your psyche. You are not alone. Thousands walk this path, and each storm strengthens the other. Join us and see what lies beyond the illusions. And finally, I leave you with a promise. This awakening is not the end of your story. It is the threshold of another dimension. When the empath awakens, they step not just into survival, but into vision, intuition, synchronicity. They begin to notice signs, patterns, connections, life itself, whispering guidance. The storm clears the sky, and in that clarity, you see stars you never knew were there. This is the dimension Jung hinted at, the space where the self emerges fully, radiant, whole, unshackable. That is where I will meet you. See you in the next dimension.